everyone, it's Justine and welcome to a new video for Ellen Hutson. Today I'm creating an interactive card using the flip slider die from Mama Elephant that creates this really fun interactive pull slider that you can pull to reveal different images. The images that I'm going to be revealing are from the Tweet Holiday stamp from My Favorite Things. Now I'm going to take apart this die here. You can see it comes with the flip slider as well as two corner rounded rectangles, and you can use either size with the flip slider die. I'm personally going to be using the larger size so I can ensure to fit the images from the stamp set on there. As far as interactive dies and cards go, this is a fairly easy one. So I'm going to get started by stamping out all of the images from the Tweet Holidays stamp set. So I'm going to lay them on a piece of scrap Nina Solar White cardstock in 80 pound. And I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring as well. So I'm going to use a Copic friendly ink. And these here I'm going to lay out. I'm going to stamp the 3 birds and then I'm going to stamp the same bird again to make the 4th. There are 4 bird stamps on this set. One has a little bird couple, but unfortunately it's too big for the slider die, so I had to repeat one of mine. So I stamped them a couple of times onto using my Misty stamping platform to make sure I had a really nice dark black image, which I didn't show on screen, but just note that I did stamp it a few times. And now I'm going to begin my Copic coloring. Now, I wasn't doing anything super fancy with my Copic coloring. I first started out by grabbing a bunch of BG markers, and I knew this color of cardstock that I wanted to use was more of a minty color, and so I grabbed all the markers that were of a similar shade in light and dark, and I put them up the top of my paper. Then I went ahead and picked and chose my colors based on what I thought would look good as a blend together, and I colored the entire bird body in the lightest mint green BG10, and then I went ahead and added all of my shadows. Now these images are fairly small, so they're quite easy to color, and you don't need to add a ton of shading to them because that's not the focal point of your card. The focal point is the interactive slider die. So I went ahead now with some of the grays. I'm using the N grays, so N0, N2, 4, 6, and 8. And I went in and I wanted to add some little patterns to the scarf and things like that. And there were a couple of little mishaps here where I accidentally grabbed the wrong marker. And I ended up having to color that a lot darker than I had originally planned. But not a big deal. I went over them a couple more times and I was able to still get that striped look by using my N8 and N6. But I didn't get as much shadowing as I thought I would. Overall, though, I'm happy with my images, and I was able to cut them out with the coordinating dies, and I'm using my Gemini Junior machine to cut them and purple tape to hold the dies in place. I always have to use purple tape now with my dies because I'm using my Gemini Junior and the dies are flipped upside down, as you saw, so it's really important that they stay in the same place, especially after I finish doing all of that coloring. Now I'm going to go ahead for the actual interactive slider portion of the card. So I've grabbed my slider die here as well as some minty blue cardstock, and I'm going to die cut that using my Gemini Junior die cutting machine, as well as 4 of those larger curved rectangles that you saw. This will ensure that I have enough to put all of my birds on here, and that is what the slider die does require, is 4 of them. You may be able to use less, but it might have less of an effect on the slider die itself. So this is super easy to put together. So what I always do when I get a die with fold lines is I make sure and score those and fold them back and forth to make sure that they are nice and foldable. So now I have everything cut in front of you. I'm just going to go ahead and fold these fold lines here. I did an accordion pattern here just for now. I'm not exactly sure what I need to do to put this together, so I'm going to go ahead and do some experimenting. So the easiest part here is just actually putting the die on itself. You're going to place glue on top of all of the little panels here and making sure that you leave a little bit of a gap between the folds here so that it folds really easily and nicely. And then you have all of your slider dies completely in place. You're then going to glue all of your images on, or you could have did this beforehand as well. It's completely up to you. It probably would have been easier to do beforehand. So you're going to glue your images on each one of these rectangles here in the order that you want them to be in. So now that everything is all put together, you'll see that it is really easy. You just fold this large piece here that's hanging behind your die, and you use these tabs here to tuck that in. And those tabs there are the only thing that are going to be glued on your cardstock. The rest of it is going to remain completely by itself. So I'm adding a card panel to my card base, so it measures 4 by 5 1/4, so I get that mint border around my white cardstock. I thought mint on mint kind of made the slider get lost, so I thought adding a white panel would be a good idea. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue those 2 little tabs here that I mentioned using some Tombow Mono liquid adhesive. You could also use some score tape as well. Tape might be a better idea. With liquid glue, I didn't touch it for several minutes before I started using the slider interactive portion because it would have came undone. So it's completely up to you what adhesive you want to use, but just note you might have to wait for it to completely adhere. So now I'm going in with the hand-lettered holiday greeting stamp from My Favorite Things. I love the brush lettering that's done on this stamp set. I'm going to be using the holiday greetings sentiment as well, and I'm going to be doing an ombre stamping effect with this. So I'm using my Misty, and I'm going ahead now with some Aquatini ink, and I'm stamping it down onto my cardstock. And now I'm going to go in with my All That Jazz ink from Catherine Pooler, and I'm going to only ink kind of the edges there of the first greeting, and that's going to give me a really pretty ombre effect where it's going from light to dark. One thing I always say is make do with what you have, and I wanted to do a snow cover plate die or some sort of stamp on the background, but I didn't have one. So I went ahead with some Nouveau gloss white dots, and I decided to add those to my card to look like snow just to add some extra detail. I let everything sit for a couple of hours to let those drops die, and then I was able to go ahead and use my flip die here. So much fun. Look how interactive this card is, and it's going to be loved by someone for sure at Christmas time. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you are interested in checking out more videos from Ellen Hutson, there is an entire channel of inspiration to check out. I hope you've started your holiday cards already, and don't forget to subscribe to the Ellen Hutson channel. See you next month for another video. Bye!